And when I see an opportunity to make an improvement that will help not just that specific user, but all users or most users, then there's a new feature that comes up. The hard part was to build it. All we need to do is build it, and then the people will come. And I was so wrong. That's just not how this works. You are a new business with no audience and no market and no reputation. It takes a lot of work to get your voice out there.
Hello guys, you're listening to Building Digital Products, and today with you, me, Andrei Sambir, CEO of LinkUp Studio, a product-focused company, and today we have the interview with the amazing guy, amazing entrepreneur, friend of mine for the long time, John Kamman. Well, before John will tell a few words about himself, I can tell that I'm working with this guy like more than 5 years already, I believe, right, John?
Yeah, 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years, and I can tell you that this story is the perfect example of how you build a digital product on your own and actually put a lot of effort and a lot of work. And I'm more than sure, I know that John's story will tell you how much work is behind any digital software, basically. So, okay, let's not taking too much time. Hello, John. Nice to see you here.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah. Tell a few words about yourself to our listeners. So, like, who you are.
Yeah, sure. So John K Amman, I live in Missoula, Montana, so in the kind of northern and western part of the country.
So you go skiing, right?
Yeah, in the winter.
And you know how snow looks. Good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful mountainous area. I live here with my wife and our daughter, who I believe is a little bit older than your little one.
Yes, we have who for those who don't know, but we have small babies with John. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've kind of done a few things in my life, ranging from the sort of technical world to, I was formally trained as a scientist originally, and kind of got into data in that way.
You mean like education, right?
Yep. So I went to school for biology. And then I ended up going back to school for nonprofit business. So I spent most of my career in like the nonprofit space, nonprofit science education world. And then, about 5 or 6 years ago, we started this side project, Wholesum, with you all. And I've been focused on that for quite a few months, and I continue to kind of work in the nonprofit tech space as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So the Wholesum, how did you, first of all, tell, let's imagine I don't know nothing, and tell it to me, tell me, in few words, what it was all about.
Yeah, sure. So it's an online tool that helps groups with menu planning and food planning. And basically this came about because I was working in this sort of outdoor education world. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is people doing trips, backpacking trips and rafting trips and camping trips. And there were a lot of these experienced outdoors people, educators, scientists, raft guides, those sorts of things. That was the space that I was working in. And their work was really not about feeding people, but in the end, a lot of their work ended up being feeding people. And these weren't expert chefs or expert cooks or expert planners when it came to food. And so what ended up happening was that a lot of these trips would go out, and the food planning was just a nightmare for all of them. You can imagine there's a group of 15 people on a 5-day trip, and all of them have dietary restrictions that they can't eat. And you don't know how many loaves of bread to buy and how many onions to buy and what meals to serve. And this is a problem that's just pervasive in the outdoor world in particular. Wholesum's kind of a tool that we built to try to solve that problem.
Okay, so basically this is super, I would tell it very classic way. So you found the problem in your everyday work, and you just saw the opportunity to solve in that, right? How did you come to the, because there are dozens of things. I mean, starting from, guys, take your food with your own.
Yeah,
you know. But you found this opportunity, to build a product which actually going to help you, going to help those people to solve their, that planning thing. So what Wholesum do? I mean, I understand it's like planning, but maybe we can try to explain to our listeners, and on the video we'll kind of show the few screenshots. But how does it work in the sense, well, I mean, this is some kind of the table. Why it's better than, I don't know, Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, for sure. So it started as a spreadsheet, actually. And if you rewind about 10 years from now, I was working with one organization trying to solve this problem using a complicated spreadsheet. And we did pretty well with it. It worked pretty well for them. And it's fairly simple math, how many ingredients per person and how many people, and you sort of scale up from there. And it worked okay, and it worked well enough that word got out to two other organizations that there was this complicated spreadsheet that was solving the problem for this one company. And they asked if they could have that spreadsheet, and I said, sure, yeah, here you go. And I helped them get it set up. But there were a lot of limitations about how to that were just hard to accomplish in Excel, and it always broke, right? Like it needed a really power user for spreadsheets in order to use it effectively, to change it without breaking it. And then if it broke, there were so many formulas that it was really hard for anybody to fix other than myself. And so it wasn't really like a scalable solution beyond just one company.
So you were like the supporter of that spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. John, sorry, we lost some potato here.
Yeah, exactly. And we saved over it, and now it's broken, and we have to fix it. And it wasn't very friendly from a user interface.
Well, we're talking about the Excel. Come on.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so it was like 6 years ago, I think, that my wife and I, who's a partner in all of this, is decided to try to make a tool that was more powerful, harder to break, more scalable, easier to learn, and a nicer user interface that these companies could just jump on without too much setup, without too much training, and start using in the same way that the spreadsheet would have worked for them if they had. Okay,
so let's talk a little bit more about this moment. Like you got the problem, you understood that the solution that you got doesn't work. Okay, let's build the software, and this is supposed to be the tough decision, because obviously, how did you prepare yourself before you contacted us?
The first thing I started to do was to try to build it by myself. A lot of my work is in the Salesforce platform, which is like a database driven tool that is really flexible, and you can build a lot of great, sort of apps and tools on that platform, but it's not really meant for mass market, it's hard to package it up and productize in Salesforce. It's more of an internal tool than it is, at least in the ways that I've used it in the past. And so I first started trying to build it myself, and it just wasn't coming out the way that I had wanted it to be. And I think there were just pieces that I needed more expertise to do this. And Salesforce wasn't the right place to do this. It was just the only place that I knew how to do it, and so it took the tough decision was to, and this is a decision I still struggle with all the time, was to take the control and give it to somebody else who's better at it than me. I think this is like one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn growing up, is that there are people out there like yourselves who are just better at certain things than you ever will be. And
that sounds like learning. A compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean it as a compliment. And it's true in many parts of life. Like, I used to brew my own beer, and it took a lot of work, and I was not any good at it. And there are so many people that are just really talented at making bread, or making desserts, or making beer, or building apps. And at some point I need to learn that as much as I like doing it all myself, it's sometimes better to rely on people who know more than you do.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
gave up. The end of that story is I kind of realized that I was never going to achieve the quality that I wanted by myself, and so I started
Yeah, actually, in
looking.
our list of our records, we have one record about so in case you have some problem, you firstly trying to solve it. Like with you don't need to build the software, out in the first step. You firstly want to try to solve it. Some kind of the existing tools, like you done with the Excel, I like you done with the Salesforce, and only when you have this proving of concept, and you're sure it's going to work, and after that, it makes sense to invest into building something custom. So yeah, I mean, you guys can find it on the list of the records. Okay, John, I know very interesting case with the Wholesum we have here, that actually we as I mentioned, we together working like already 6 years, and can you explain to our listeners how it's happening that there is always things to do? It's sounds like very simple, people always planning things differently, we don't, it's not like some, genetic change coming and, now we're eating like 10 times more than we used to 10 years ago. No, that's not like this, but still there are plenty of work on the Wholesum. How does it happen?
Yeah. Do you mean from a development
Yes,
standpoint, or
from the
just in
development
general?
standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, and also in general in the, in the business strategy more.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a few things there. One is, I think I was really naive when we started this project together in a few different ways, because this was new to me. One was the development process was like, there's always some perfect tool that's a little bit out of reach, and we are always working towards that. But as you get closer and closer to being perfect, your goals expand as well. So, oops, lost my earphones here. So, the original goal that we had for Wholesum, we've way surpassed that, right? Like, it's way more powerful, way more engaging and better designed than we had even hoped for 5 years ago. And we keep pushing the boundary, trying to make more improvements, make better improvements. So there's that kind of work that's always just trying to incrementally get better and better and better as a tool. And that's one way in which there's always more work. I think if you are the type of product developer or entrepreneur or whatever it is, that you have this certain expectation and you meet that expectation and then you're done, then that's a different story. But the story of Wholesum, at least, is one of like constant change and growth. So that creates more and more work. And then the other side of it too is that as our user base expands little by little, it's still a pretty small business, but as we get more and more users, they all engage with Wholesum and engage with food in different ways, and every user has a little different need. And eventually, I try to keep track of all of those different requests and needs. And when I start to hear the same one again and again and again from different people, suddenly there's a new need for development. And so that's a new feature or a new, little fix or a design change or those sorts of things that.
If I will resume, is it right to tell that actually, most of the how to tell right, like most of the development that you are doing right now is actually dictated by your users. It's not like you just sitting there like, oh, cool feature, or no, or you kind of you make some, like, how do you stop the priorities basically?
Yeah, at this stage, it's mostly driven by users making requests or ideas that they have to make their process better. And when I see an opportunity to make an improvement that will help not just that specific user, but all users or most users, then there's a new feature that comes up. When we started this, it was more driven by me because I didn't have the time or resources, financial resources, to do a broad market study and to do the user testing and to gather ideas and features. I think the right process is probably to do all of that homework and then go to start building.
I tell you, there is no right process, to be honest. There are some people who believe they are, but
Yeah. I maybe it was my own impatience, but I'm mostly, I was working a full-time job, and we didn't have a lot of financial resources, so I packaged up what I thought was the best solution and then brought it to you to help me.
So you basically focus on the, like you wanted to build, lots of things, lots of features, but you, as far as I understand, you focus on the most important one, and with this one you came to us, right?
Yep, exactly. And some of those ones that I came to you with, we scrapped. Like nobody wanted them. I thought they were great, and nobody wanted them. And then there were other ideas that came from users that were really, really great that continue to support the tool.
I see. I know the interesting situation that we got in the Wholesum. Like Wholesum is basically the most, how to tell it, powerful tool is the website, but except of that, there is also the mobile app for Android and iOS, which is like kind of smaller and easier. Can you explain how you came to this decision that you need to have this app, but lighter version and so on?
Yeah, the app is it's used only by a small number of users and only for a really specific need, and that basically, as you can imagine, that you spent all this time planning for your group. You've got 15 people, and here are the meals you're serving, and here are the dietary restrictions, and here's how many people are eating each different meal, and here are the substitutes that we're doing for dietary restrictions, and there's all of this planning that goes into it. And the output is a shopping list. Like it's what you go to the store with to go actually buy the 12 onions and the 3 loaves of bread and whatever it is. That's the final output, and you can print that off on a printer, or you can email it to yourself, or there's different ways to engage with it. But a lot of users were asking if there was an app just for shopping. So not for all that planning, which is most of the work of Wholesum. It's just for that last step to go shopping.
So you're just going with the list and, tick, 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 right? Buy, right?
Yep. And then multiple people can be using it at the same time and, checking off shopping, spreading out at the store and buying it. Yeah. So it's just for that, like one specific use case.
Okay. So as far as I know, like right now, like Wholesum is not your only job. So you have like daily job basis. So can you tell me how does it work in your life? How do you find in time? Put priorities, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So I left my full-time job of 11 years in December, and while I was working that job, I would try to do Wholesum on the side, and so that meant evenings, weekends, days off, an occasional email or whatever during my working day.
So you got lots of sick leaves, right?
Yeah, exactly right. It was I just tried to juggle both of them at the same time, and it was possible, but it meant I couldn't focus on it as much as I would have liked, which is part of why I think it's still this small and growing business, because it hasn't had my full energy until more recently. And then I'm actually starting a new role at a different company in a few weeks, and so I'll have to shift from this being my primary focus to a side focus, and my wife will take on more of the work moving forward.
Okay, so more communication with your wife. That's good.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I'm not sure that we're making the right entrepreneurial decision. I think a lot of organizations in our place right now would be seeking outside investment so that we could hire staff to really grow. I know that there's growth to be had. It's still growing on its own, and there's a lot of potential users out there that we just need to reach. And I think somebody who's maybe more entrepreneurially minded would seek outside investment or loans and build this business. And we kind of like with the beer and bread analogy, we really just want to do this ourselves, and we don't want at this stage to we want to grow it by ourselves, and even if that means it's this side thing that we can't spend much time on, and it grows more slowly because of that.
I understand. Interesting. I had an interesting question which actually got off my mind, so I need to check. Okay. So how does it? I mentioned that. So how like as far as I know, you are going to different conference with the product, like you're showing it to the people. Like, so how did you engage your first users? I mean, because right now, while they're like people telling to each other, that's kind of easier seems to be, right? And in case no, just fix me if I'm wrong, right? But like the first one, I mean, I know that you used to go to some conferences. Like how it was?
Yeah, sure. I think that was, I mentioned that I was naive at the beginning when we started this. One was in one way was the development that we talked about, and the development needs, that it's not just that one discrete project. It's this ongoing work for years and years. The other way was that there's a movie in the US called Field of Dreams. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, with Kevin Costner.
Unfortunately, but okay.
There's a line in that movie that a lot of people will know. That's, if you build it, they will come. And it's a story of a baseball field. And they keep saying, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. And I had the same mentality with Wholesum, that the hard part was to build it. All we need to do is build it, and then the people will come. And I was so wrong. That's just not how this works. You have to go out and knock on doors and call people and email people and show up at conferences. And even then, sometimes people need more hand holding. Maybe with some businesses, all you have to do is build it, and then the value is so obvious that everybody comes to it. But for us, that wasn't true. We had to really work to try to find users and to convince them that it was worth.
How much users platform having right now?
It varies between like 100 and 200 companies. It's a seasonal tool as well. So 100 to 200 companies using it. And it's like a monthly or annual subscription. So it kind of depends on the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we started by just cold contacting companies that we knew would benefit from this tool. And that got us a few trial users. We also launched it with an invitation to give us feedback. Well, I should rewind first. The first users, we gave it away for free. We gave it to the few organizations that were close to us in exchange, and we gave them lifetime free access.
And they still have this access, right?
And and they still use it. And they were instrumental in giving feedback early on. So
it's like early birds, right?
Yep, exactly. So what we got was their unfiltered feedback on what was working and what wasn't working, and what features they wanted to see.
Was there lots of frustration sometimes when people tell them okay, this is something wrong, change it please, or this is it was how did it feel?
The first meeting I had with this did not go well. I sat down. So it was originally built and designed with me as the user, right? This is how I would engage this tool, and this is how my brain works. And then we built that, and then I went and gave it to these other users to try to use it, and they just think about the problems so differently, and the user interface is, they would engage in it in a different way than I would engage with it. And so when I sat down for them, and I just kind of watched them use it, it was my heart just sank, because they couldn't figure it out, and they didn't know where to go for different pieces. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is never going to work. If they can't figure out these basic steps, then nobody will be able to figure it out.
But they did, right?
We rebuilt it. We went back and we made changes based on where they got stuck. We'd give a little help tip, and we redesigned the main page so that they could navigate a little bit more easily, and we fixed some user interface issues, and it got better and better and better and better, and it's been this constant process of
I see. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you don't know exact number, but still, just from top of your mind, how much iteration there was before you understood, okay, now we're done, or it's still happening?
It's still not done.
It's still not done.
No. It's good. It's really good as it is right now. And I think it was probably, so we started in, I think, 2016, and I think it was in 2018 that it started to be a really good standalone tool. So it took, the initial phase of development that we started with you and your team was probably 3 or 4 months. But it took probably 2 years before I was happy with the tool on its own, and I was proud of it and was like, okay, confident that this will work for you. And that says nothing about the development process. Like, the development process was great. It was more about, like, there is this necessary step of getting users to break it and test it and interface with it and give feedback and then fixing that, and that was a new process for me. And again, I naively thought that after 3 or 4 months of development, we would have this perfect tool, and then the next step was for me to go sell it. But it was really multiple years of improvements.
Okay, so I believe that the last long question, like, what kind of the advisor you would give to the people who are right now somewhere in the point where you were in 2016?
Yeah. Let's see. Like, I think those two big takeaways for me. Number one is, don't think of this as one discrete development project that will finish. This is a project that you will be working on for many, many years, and the rate of development might slow down. Like, for us now, we work with you all a few hours per month, I think, compared to years ago when it was a lot
compared
more
to active. Yeah, so just to make our listeners explain, we build the MVP, let's call it an MVP version, the first version, with the actively developed for the few months, and then every product requests support, but that doesn't mean there are big team of developers who do it in full time. It's not like that. In real life, you need to do something, launch, and then just adjust things. So,
and we might do a new feature that is a more active development for a piece.
So it's like the sinusoid, more actively, less actively, for sure.
Yeah, and I didn't understand that when I was starting. So that's one piece of advice, is that first phase of development.
Just know this.
Crucial, but you are in this for years to come, and it's that's a really exciting thing. I really enjoy that work still, but it also is an investment that you have to anticipate. That I would say, I have limited experience with this, but we've had such a good working relationship with you all and your team, that I think finding a development team that you plan to be with for years is a really good strategy, rather than just a development team that's going to work with you for a few months.
That's actually sprint, not marathon. That's true. So vice versa, that's actually marathon, not the sprint.
Yeah.
Okay. And second.
So that's one piece, and then the second piece is that marketing and sales piece, right? I didn't anticipate how much work. I had worked in the marketing world before, so I should have known this, but it was always for established businesses who have a reputation and who have an audience, and when you are a new business with no audience and no market and no reputation, it takes a lot of work to get your voice out there, and that's a slow process too.
And you need to be ready for this, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, both.
Good. John, I have a list of very, very brief questions to you.
Yeah.
Sure. So be ready to answer fast without thinking. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Beer or whiskey?
Whiskey.
In-house or outsource?
This is the dilemma, right? I want to do it in-house, but you should probably outsource.
Okay. Work from office or from home?
From home.
Megapolis or small town?
A small town.
Gmail or Messenger?
Gmail.
Okay. Work till in the early morning or work late night?
Late night.
Okay. Read or listen?
Listen.
Okay, good. Now we know a little bit more about you. That's nice. That's great. Okay, good, guys. I believe that's everything that we supposed to ask John. John, really thank you for your time and for really interesting story. I really appreciate, guys, that you have listened to this, and subscribe. put the likes button. I don't know, do we have in the, I don't, like on YouTube you have this, on the audio I don't know, but still I hope there are, so put like buttons. Thank you very much, and till the next time, bye. You just listen, building digital products. Bye.